We got a fun event tonight, and as I look around the room, I think, oh, this doesn't even work. Now you can see me. So we have a fun event tonight, and a lot of people in this room, like Ron, like John Bullard, go back all the way to the time when Ralph Fasanella was here in the city back in 1986. And I include myself in that group. And you might say, well, how is that? Well, no, I was a teen. I was working in the I was working as a custodian at the Whaling Museum, where the exhibit was. And I remember I had to put up some drywall, paint it, and because I don't know if you remember the exhibit, John, it was actually displayed on the walls, but also on these like kiosks in the middle of the museum. So I hanged some of these paintings way back when Ralph was down. I remember him coming through and all that. So I have, like many of you, I have that connection. But I was just kind of like a wise ass teenager back then, so I didn't fully appreciate the import. And so we're here today because we're here to celebrate the impact of Ralph Fasanella generally and to the city specifically. And I want to just sort of start off. I'm going to introduce the inimitable Lisa Lemieux in a second to MC our ceremony, but I wanted to say a couple of words up front. I just want to thank a lot of the folks who moved this project forward, and there are a number of you in the room, starting with Lisa, of course, as well as Ron Carver, who's been working on a project. He'll tell you about that, whose goal is to ensure the display of Fasanella's works all across the country in public places that are accessible. Here in New Bedford, as it turns out, the punchline is, as we'll see in a few minutes, we've got two public buildings. We've got the original across the street, which is a little bit better secured of a building, and then the one right here, which is very prominently displayed in City Hall in replica. And so we'll at the end of the ceremony, we'll go on out and take a look at that. But I want to thank you, Ron, for your leadership and your initiative, and John Bullard for your advocacy, and so many others. Senator Montaigne has been a big supporter of all things public art in the city and a big champion of these things. Tony, of course, as well, all the same can be said for his advocacy, and as well as the City Council President Burgos here, as well as Councilor Lopes from Ward 5, and Bruce Oliveira, school committee member, member of the Labor Council for many years, school committee, redevelopment authority. Really sound like board after board after board. We all know Bruce and his contributions to the city. I just want to say just a couple of quick things. So as we think about Fasanella's work, we think about something that is very timely today in an age of AI and an age of, at the risk of politicizing things, people being deported even though they're just here in the United States working and not committing any crimes. And folks that we see in our daily lives all the time. The dignity of work is something that was at the center of Ralph Fasanella's life and his efforts, and I think it's even as timely today in different ways as it was during his lifetime, that we exalt it. And I think that my hope is that by putting this replica here in City Hall for everybody to display, everybody who sets foot in City Hall will pass by that and look at it. And my hope is that there'll be opportunities for quiet contemplation. Everybody can interpret it in their own way, but what I hope emerges is that hard work is something that we should all value. Hard work is something that should be rewarded. Hard work is something that makes us more human, and that's why we're doing what we're doing today. And I could thank everybody in this audience, all of you who are leaders in the labor movement, all those who support those ideals, everybody here who contributes to our city. So I want to thank everybody for being part of this today. And I forgot Allie Copeland, who you'll hear from. She's our art curator in the library, but and Olivia Mello, our Director of Library Services over there, and all the members of the library board too, where the original is lovingly housed. So with all that, I'm going to introduce the hostess with the mostest, Lisa Lemieux. Lisa.
Thank you. So this has been a long time coming. Welcome, brothers and sisters and siblings and all who stand with working people. We want to, in addition to all the folks that our great mayor has already thanked, we want to thank the original partners of this project, the city's bicentennial committee of 1986. The New Bedford Arts Lottery Council, the New Bedford Whaling Museum. The original gift was made possible with support from the Massachusetts Council for the Arts and Humanities, the Morse Cutting Tools, Carroll Cable Company, the Seafarers International Union of North America, AFL-CIO, the United Electrical Radio and Machine Workers of America, the SMU, now known as UMass Dartmouth, John Humphrey, Mark Goldwitz, Myron Martyr, and of course, our former Mayor Bullard, who's here today. You know, when I was first elected president of the Greater Southeastern Massachusetts Labor Council, which is one of my greatest honors, this guy, Ron Carver, walked into the Labor Council, and I didn't know who Ron was at the time, but he came in and told me the story of Ralph Fasanella. And it wasn't an optional, it wasn't an optional thing. I was going to learn about Ralph Fasanella in that moment, right there and then. And he says, Lise, I need you to help me get this painting restored back on the walls of City Hall. And there began this mission. And it began the process of me having to call this mayor to help me do that. And I'm proud to say that the mayor and I have always been able to work together. And I think that this project is proof of that. That we're here to rededicate Ralph Fasanella's labor education, New Bedford's Union Hall painting back to the walls of City Hall. And so although the original will remain on display at the library with all of the city's public art collection, this replica will be mounted where it was intended to be by the elevator here at City Hall. But tonight, we're not just gathered to celebrate a painting. We're here to honor something far deeper. The power of art to tell our story, the story of working people and organized labor. Too often, art is used to celebrate the wealthy, the powerful, the so-called great men of history. But art that reflects the working class does something profoundly different. It shines a light on the people who built this country with their hands and their courage. It validates our lives, our labor, our struggles. It reminds us that the story of America is not written only in boardrooms or marble halls. It is written in factories, in mills, in offices, in union halls, and on picket lines, and in the daily grind of ordinary people fighting for dignity. This is why the work of Ralph Fasanella matters so much. Ralph was born in the Bronx, the son of Italian immigrants. His mother worked in a garment shop. His father delivered ice door to door. He grew up during the Great Depression, and from an early age, he knew hardship, but also the strength of community. Ralph was no elite, no graduate of art academies. He was a union organizer, a soldier, a worker himself. And when he picked up a paintbrush to share his inspiration, he painted us. And this canvas of the Union Hall is not painted from the outside, but from the inside, from lived experience. Ron Carver is here tonight to talk more about Ralph's process, and many people here can share stories of how they met him during this process to create this work. His work is vivid, crowded, alive with the energy and struggle of working people. And he believed art should be for the people, not locked away in galleries, but hanging in public spaces where everyone could see themselves reflected. That's why this piece was rededicated tonight. Labor, education, New Bedford's Union Hall is so important. It is more than just paint on a canvas. It's a declaration that working people deserve to be remembered, that our struggles and victories are part of the great American story, and this couldn't come at a more important time. While we gather here tonight, thousands of federal government workers across this country are losing their right to a union. Earlier this year, the federal administration issued an executive order ending collective bargaining rights for over a dozen federal agencies. More than 1 million federal employees, people who had negotiated over their working conditions, telework, grievance procedures, and parental leave, have seen those rights stripped away. At the Department of Veterans Affairs, nearly all bargaining agreements have been torn up. Offices once full of unionized workers are emptied with little or no notice. At the FDA, telework agreements ended without consultation. Scientists, engineers, inspectors losing not only rights, but the ability to speak up when their working conditions changed overnight. Yes, there are legal challenges. Yes, some courts have pressed pause, but already the damage is being felt. Protections gone, morals shaken, trust broken. And we know this. When we lose collective bargaining, we lose more than a contract. We lose our voice. We lose our stories. We lose democracy itself. This is why Ralph Fasanella painted working people, not just because he saw them. He wanted to see them live in freedom. He believed their stories are the very center of what makes us human. His canvases made visible what others tried to keep hidden: the struggle, the hope, the dignity in ordinary things, a meeting, a strike, a training in a union hall. So let this painting be more than a tribute. Let it be a call to remember, to resist, and to renew. If we value the dignity of labor, we must speak up when the rights are eroded. If we value the stories of those who build, heal, and protect, we must insist that their working lives matter, not just in art, but in laws and in the conditions of work. Ralph Fasanella once said, "I paint working people because they are the guts of this world." Tonight, as we honor this work, we also honor ourselves, the labor movement, the unions, the workers who make our communities strong. May this art remind us of where we've been and inspire us for the struggle still ahead. Thank you to the City of New Bedford for honoring labor by restoring this painting to a place of prominence and keeping it available to the public. Thank you for being here tonight. So let's see. So the Whaling Museum could not be here with us today. And so now we're calling up Allie Copeland.
I thought I was I'm going to be really quick. So hi, my name is Allie Copeland. I'm the art curator for the New Bedford Free Public Library. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak tonight. As many of you know, labor education has been on display in the library for many years now, and we are very pleased to have additional access here in City Hall again. Ralph Fasanella understood the importance of providing free public access to art, something that we at the library are very passionate about as well. One of our missions in the library is to inspire lifelong learners, and I think that public art like this is very important to that mission. Artists reflect the reality around them. They use their unique perspectives to create work which speaks to people emotionally and intellectually. And by interacting with art, we expand our viewpoints and see the world through another person's eyes. Great artists don't just show you a picture, they show you something about yourself as well. I think Fasanella's work is such a perfect example of this. He even said, I think that The only time a drawing or painting is really successful is when you come out of it. The painter has to come out of it himself. I'd like to thank Ron Carver as well for his work in keeping these paintings in the public. Having publicly accessible art is so important, especially in times like these, as both of you have said. One of the things I love about being the curator for the library and for a public collection is that I get visitors from all walks of life, from all over the country and abroad. And these are people who sometimes wouldn't be comfortable going to museums or galleries, or those spaces could be barred from them. But because we're free and public, they can experience a world-class art collection and have access to it just the same. In Ron's essay on the public domain project, he says that Fasanella always said that he got a graduate degree at the New York Public Library, which I think speaks to the power of public institutions to inspire and educate. Now with this project, we can reach an even wider audience and hopefully inspire many future artists, historians, and organizers here in New Bedford.
And now, Ron.
Well, it's wonderful to be here with you, Mayor, with Lisa. I only wish that I didn't have to speak after you, because now I have a challenge to keep people inspired, awake. Let me just say a few things about how the painting came about. How did we bring Ralph to New Bedford? After high school, I went down to Mississippi for 15 months to work in the civil rights movement. I came back, I went to school in New York, spent 3 years working to help the U.S. soldiers who were opposed to the war in Vietnam build a peace movement within the military. And then I moved to New Bedford, to Cottage Street. And what a good move that was. It changed my life. I worked for 2 years at the Cushnet Process, like almost everybody else in New Bedford had. It was a good thing to do to become part of a community. I went to work for the United Electrical Workers for 13 years, and then eventually to the Teamsters for 18 years. But in between, I was occupied by this art project that I call Public Domain. So how did it happen? It happened because in 1985, when the UE's national cartoonist named Fred Wright, who was celebrated all over the country and many different publications freely reproduced his work, he passed away. So Barbara Doherty, my wife, and I went to New York to his memorial service. And there we saw Ralph Fasanella. And I had seen a number of his exhibits before. Barbara hadn't. And I said, Ralph, is there anywhere that you have paintings on exhibit now I can show Barbara? The real stuff, right? That shake and vibrate and create energy, besides looking good. And he told us we're at Hustis Community College. There was an exhibit. We went there. And like always, I was just blown out. And we got home, and the next day, I got hold of his home phone number in Ardsley, New York, called up, spoke to his wife, and said, more than anything, I want to bring some of Ralph's paintings to New Bedford so our union members can see them. And she said, it's impossible. And that just got me more excited than anything. Impossible. The next few years, she said they're going on a tour of the United States organized by the Johnson Museum at Cornell, so it's just not possible. So I said thank you and hung up and called Thomas Levitt, who was the director of the Johnson Museum at Cornell, said, how can we possibly get some of these? Oh, he said, there's a 2-month opening in our national tour during March and April of next year. And if you can get a certified museum, and if you can raise $6,000 like all the other, you can buy into this exhibit. So I went to see Richard Kugler, the director of the museum. I went to see Mayor Bullard. I went to see Erica Bronstein, who was running the Labor Education Center. And everyone agreed, and we invited Ralph and Eva Fasanella to New Bedford to check this all out. And we got Bobby Green, who was this fantastic jazz musician. If you don't know of his work, find it somehow. And he put on a fundraiser right in the Whalen Museum, right next to that big half-size ship. And that was the beginning. Then, with the help of Vic Maley and Bettina Borders, Ralph wanted to stay in New Bedford during those 2 months, and Bronwyn Swerner. So they put him up, and he would walk around every morning, get up at 5 or 6 and go down to the waterfront. He would go to the different factories. We were able to get him permission to go in, and he had a blast, and he soon knew more people in New Bedford than I did. So that's how it began. But what I want to say is, if you're understanding Ralph, this was more than an exhibit. I mean, and when here's a cute story, not that one, because that was done before public domain, but all the others you see in the back, when we were making posters over the years, which is how we raised the money to buy paintings back from collectors and then donate them to museums or public buildings, we sold these posters, $10 each or $20 if he signed them. And I've got to tell you, we raised probably $1 million over 3 years. And we got them to all different kinds of collections and places. He said to me, when you make those posters, he said, make sure that the printer prints them on a strict inch numbers high and inch numbers wide, not some odd paper size, so that workers can take them down to a local put-together frame shop and buy these put-together frames, which are sold by height and length, and some foam cord behind them, and have a piece of glass cut, and they can go up in people's apartments. And that, he said, that's so important. And when we began having publicity around all of this, and I'll tell you all these things in a minute, and the Standard Times was the paper then, and they even made a logo for Ralph Fasanella stories. Why? Because there were so many. We had a Fasanella Favorite Film Festival. There were 2 teachers, Emily Barr from New Bedford and Carol Doherty from Taunton, and they wrote up a local labor history curriculum for New Bedford, Taunton, and Fall River. We bussed 3,000 school children in to meet him at the Whalen Museum, and we brought him to many classrooms.
We have the curriculum.
You found
We
it?
found it after Carol passed away.
Oh, thank God. I've been so distraught over that. So we'll have to update it. But it talks about the 1938 textile strike. It talks about way back when, the whaling people and their labor struggles. Great. And must talk about labor support for John Bullard and John Mitchell, I'm sure. Or if it doesn't, it ought to. So,
And Tony was there.
yes. Anyway, these were the kinds of activities we did. And then he went further and he said, I'd love to hang out in your Union Hall. It was at 52 Union Street, where there's now a restaurant and bar. He said, but you're only using it for union meetings. Why not jazz concerts? He says, I used to have jazz concerts on Long Island, and when I was organizing Sperry Electronics, he said, In fact, that's why he got fired, because the union wasn't so happy about him doing that. And so we began to have meetings. We had a woman from South Africa, this is while apartheid was still there, come and talk about South Africa. We had all kinds of, so he saw the Union Hall as a cultural center, not just for getting better raises. As the people during the 1912 textile strike said, that we're striking for bread and roses too. So that was important. So it started here, and we got great coverage from the Standard Times, the Providence Journal, the front cover of the Boston Globe magazine, New York Daily News, the New York Times, CBS Sunday Morning came in and filmed for hours and did a whole program on Ralph in New Bedford. The Smithsonian magazine did a story. The National Italian American Foundation magazine did a story. Great excitement, and telling people afterwards who weren't here, and how many people were here when it finally came to, we had such a buildup, and such a buildup to, what is he going to paint for New Bedford? And Lisa talked about the people who raised money and pooled money so we commissioned him to do a New Bedford painting. At first he would walk around and say to people, what do I say about New Bedford? What does it mean? What does it mean to you? What do I do? The day that the painting was unveiled here, I tell people, and I mean this sincerely, it was as if we had won the World Series. And not long before that, Boston won the World Series, and after 50 years or so, and growing up, could it ever happen? And it happened here, and now it's happening here again. So again, I want to thank Mark Montigny, Tony Cabral, former Mayor Bullard, my new best friend, John Mitchell, Lisa, the Central Labor Council. It's so exciting that it happened here. It began here. And now this public domain, it took off. I was ready to leave the UE to go to something new, and I went to New York to see my best friend, Kim Fellner, for dinner. And I had 3 different projects. I was playing with labor projects. At the end of dinner, I said, you know what? If I could do anything at all, we've just had the success in New Bedford and with the Lawrence strike painting, which is now at the Lawrence State Heritage Park. If I could do anything I'd want, I'd like to take off a year and duplicate this and do more around the country. And she, being a good friend, said, why not? And I said, well, I've got 3 kids at home, and she said, I'll help you raise money. We now have Fasanella paintings, the University of Maine, the Fenimore Art Museum in Cooperstown has the largest collection, the Metropolitan Museum in New York City, the Smithsonian Museum of American Art, the American Folk Art Museum in New York, the Hirshhorn Museum, the New York City subway at 53rd and 5th Avenue in a case built into the wall that can only be accessed from the rear, and once again in New Bedford City Hall. How great is that? On a number of Ralph's paintings, at the top, built into like a building, he has the words, lest we forget. And I was talking to him shortly before he died, and he died of emphysema because he smoked too much. Sorry, but that's the truth of it. And I said, well, is that what we're going to put on your gravestone? He said, yeah, put that on there, but you know what else you should put? Write, change the world. And that's what we're all doing here tonight, and thank you very much.
Before our moment of truth, where we go out and unveil our our painting, our picture outside. I just want to take one last moment to thank those who helped us make that happen. And that's Diana Painter, who has the postcards that were made for you guys to be able to take home and have your own memorabilia. And Melissa and Janet, who were instrumental, and Olivia, obviously. And Allie, thank you so much for all the work that you did behind the scenes to help us make this happen. And most of all, thank all of you for being here to help us celebrate this great event today. Thank you so much.